So once again, thanks for hanging, everybody, today. If you guys remember, it was like 2 and change years ago, we did your ancestry findings, and you guys have probably found that you now have different results because Ancestry has a different algorithm. So what we're going to go over today is what we initially had, now what we have, some of the things that puzzle us, and perhaps some of the things that we kind of wish we were, but we maybe no longer. So if you guys remember back in 2016, my initial results, and we're going to do this one by one and kind of just give a little hint as to what we are now showing. So if you guys remember, I came out at 21% Irish, which was my lead.
I was 36% Eastern European.
And we knew that because of our Polish ancestry. And we probably didn't think that it was that prominent then, even for you, but that came in, that's like 36% is a pretty significant number. I had 16% Great Britain, and just a little hint, guys, both of those first two have increased mightily on my results.
And my Eastern European has really decreased.
Yes.
So completely different results for me. And my second one, Great Britain, I think that has decreased as well.
My third one was 16% Europe East, which you were 36, I was 16. You thought you had less initially. I thought I had less initially too. But that was mine, so far that was, about 53% of me.
I was 20% Scandinavian, and
which they've now changed to.
They have now changed. They kind of grouped the regions differently.
And then my 15%, which was my fourth one, was Italy, Greece, and it was funny because if you guys remember my initial video, I was trying to provide a little bit of history and, a little bit of being topical with each of my findings. Here's a spoiler. So my Southern European, it looks like it has now possibly have all gone away.
And as has mine. I still wear the Italia shirt, so.
And then I had, now this one was interesting too, because Mom's looking at it as well, my 9% Europe West, which we knew about Germany, or at least we thought, because remember, Mom grew up thinking that she was German.
Me and Kyle.
And we had that whole little bit. And I was surprised because I knew I had Western European both from my maternal and my paternal side, but it came in like relatively small as to what I thought. So
my fifth one is I was 4% Irish.
And remember, you were surprised.
I was surprised
because my father is an Irish gent,
and I didn't think I was any Irish, and
nothing,
I came out in the first test 4%.
And I had the next rung in the ladder is the 5% Iberian Peninsula, which is Spain and Portugal. So we're getting kind of southwest Europe, and that has changed as well.
Okay, my next rung in the ladder is West Asia, Caucasus, and I don't even know if this is on the new results, but I came
West
in
Asia,
at 2% on that.
Yeah, so that's Turkey, Armenia, so that's West Asia. That's right before you get to the Aegean Sea, like heading west towards Europe. I had West Asian too. Mine was 4%, and I gave a little bit about that too, because guys, if you remember, I was trying to find who my ancestors were within that percentage. That has changed for me as well. So now we're getting into the home stretch of the initial results.
1% Western European on the first one, which again I thought was very odd because I grew up thinking I was
German.
So yeah, first test scored in at 1% on that one.
My next one was, I had 1% Finland, Northwest Russian, which I didn't know any of those ancestors either, but I figured that it was possible because we have knowledgeable ancestors on your side and dad's side of the family that came from the Scandinavias. So if you guys look at a map, Finland and Russia is not too far from there. So,
and then next on mine was less than 1% of the Iberian Peninsula, and I'll group that in with that's Spain and Portugal, and then also less than 1%
onesies
on Finland and Northwest Russia. So very small amounts of that.
And you didn't get any of this. My last one, guys, Mom didn't get any of this.
Nope.
I was also 1% European Jewish, and I said that I didn't know who that person was.
Must have came from your father.
Yeah, that's what we were guessing. But see, guys, now that we have different results, as you guys have too, we're going to kind of go down the list of those. Now, what's funny is some of these probably expanded for you guys, and I think for both of us they reduced, because initially I had 10 different origins, and I think you just had, because we just said them, and you had 9.
My new results are much different than my old results.
What is your lead?
My lead is Germanic Europe, so that would include
Actually, that's just Germany, because I think what they did was they took all the Western Europe and they broke them down into either Germany or France.
Right, and this
and
is
we're looking at
interesting
the,
too, because that encompasses the very, very northern tip of Italy. So also that Germanic region is southern Denmark. So I'm assuming, I know that my father's ancestors came from Copenhagen.
Right.
So that Germanic region encompasses that. So it's just a little different than what I think, just since they changed the regions, but I'm definitely way more German than my first test showed, which I'm German again.
I grew up thinking I was German,
and I'm
then
now again
1%.
German. So I guess I can put on my lederhosen.
That is a big jump, though.
That's a real big jump. So I went from, let's see, 1% to 55%.
Yeah, because you didn't have any French either. Obviously, it would have just been Western Europe, so that would have pulled it too on your first result. So that's a big old leap. Now, I had initially 21% Irish, which now I want to say that jumped to 36. But the way they grouped it with this new algorithm, guys, is Ireland and Scotland, which is not too surprising, because when you look at the Isles, that went up to, and I apologize, not 36, 35, and that was my one. And then on the new estimates, guys, it says by the percentages that it increased by. So you went up 54%, at least within just one country.
Which is over half.
So I went up 14 just
really
with my lead.
There.
And big surprise. If these new results are correct, you can see the this awesome Irish tan that I've had my whole life.
Looking German, I guess. I don't know. I've been told I look Native American, so.
My next one, and they regrouped this from Great Britain, which would have been on the initial test. So now I'm showing 18% England, Wales, and Northwestern Europe. So Wales, slight southwest, and then England being just east of Ireland. So that's now 18%. So it went there from 16. So that's already 53% of me with just two of these new results. So interesting.
And it was interesting as well. I had 20% Great Britain in my first test, and now that completely disappeared. So I'm not sure where that went.
You have no English roots.
No English roots. So that must have came from, again, Brian's father.
Now that is interesting, though, when you look at history, that you would have no English roots at all. Just think of that for
from 20%.
I'm just saying. And then my next one. Okay, now we knew of this, and I spoke about my Western European. Being surprised that it was only 9%, because now I'm showing 14% French, and it's saying that it was refined from the 9% European West, or Western European, like I just said. Now, the only French ancestry that I was aware of would be my paternal grandmother. So,
right.
But 14 is still pretty substantive, too. There is probably a reason for that as well, because we're going to get into the thinking that we were of Southern European persuasion. At least we were told.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we still are. It's just the region of Italy.
So
the next one on mine is originally 20% Scandinavian. And again, I think they changed.
Yeah, because 20% Scandinavian, so that would have conglomerated Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So, but now they broke it up.
Now they broke it up
Scandinavia into two different countries, which is Norway and Sweden. So what do you have for Swedish?
Sweden is 14%. Didn't know I had any Swedish in me.
But we knew about Denmark. So I'm thinking if this is true, then that's migration.
And
possibly. And they weren't able to narrow it down to anybody in Denmark.
A little confused about where the Copenhagen disappeared from. But again, it might be the boundaries. I'm looking at the boundaries.
I know, and they have, you guys who have an account, you can see these.
Sweden, again, is kind of Germanic. It kind of encompasses both of those regions, are kind of touching Copenhagen. So I'm really proud of my Scandinavian roots. I like to bake. I like to bake pastries and bake good, as did my father's grandmother. So.
And what's my next one? Okay, so I have now 10% Germanic Europe, which is a big difference from yours, because you're showing 55, I'm showing 10. But remember, guys, we talked about a couple years ago, DNA doesn't distribute evenly. You don't really grab everything from the entire pot. You just you get a little bit of this, get a little bit of that, so results are going to vary. So that was my Germanic Europe.
Next on my list, I was 4% Irish in the first test, and now I am 7%. But they also added Scotland in there, so Ireland and Scotland come in at 7% on the new.
We never knew who your ancestors
test
were either, that were of those.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I never was aware of any Irish or Scottish ancestors, so that's coming from somewhere.
My next is Swedish. You had 14?
Yes.
Okay, and I have 9. So the next one I have is Eastern Europe and Russia. And this one got refined from 16%, which is what we found out about last time, which is what we talked about last time. But we only had knowledge of our Polish ancestors being from Królikowo, I think was the name of that. And I am showing 6%, which is a dip from my initial 16%. So I didn't get all of that, it seems.
So that moves us to France. I spoke about that a little earlier. No French in the first test, and now I'm 5% from the French region. And I think, again, that accounts for where my ancestors in Italy came from, the very top of the boot on the border bordering France. So I was not aware of any French heritage, and here we are at 5%.
Well, that's interesting, though, because that means that you're probably of cultural Italian blood,
right,
and historic Italian, but probably not any scientific
boundary, right?
If this new test is correct, guys. And I've seen some of the comments on YouTube thus far. There's people that don't necessarily agree with this second set of results, and I'm thinking because they keep receiving so many more samples that these results are going to change, even from now, too.
I was very surprised with my first results. I grew up thinking it was German.
Well,
Sorry,
German,
can't say that without laughing, and it turns out I pretty much am German unless they come out with another test in a couple of years.
So before we continue...
Discounting all these results, so we'll see.
The commercial that we saw with Kyle, who Mum made reference to a couple years ago, do you think we're going to see another commercial of his where he's now German again?
That's interesting. I would love to see that, but I don't know if they will put it out there because it would pretty much say their first results were all BS. But yeah. I'd like to see him be German again. That was
yes,
and admit that he was German and admit that the first test was maybe
and everything that he
skewed
and everything that he partook in was correct.
So yeah, so that trauma's over. That.
So I have 2 left, and this one is probably the most accurate with what I've researched, because now I'm coming in, guys, at 6% Norwegian, which makes sense, because that's really in line with everything that I've researched. I know my 3rd great-granddad on dad's side was from Kristiansand, Norway, and that might be all that I got it from, because we never confirmed anybody Scandinavian-wise outside of Denmark for yours,
right,
but then they probably migrated from Sweden because we're both showing Swedish now.
Right. I'll do my last one. Originally tested less than 1% from Iberian Peninsula, and which is Spain and Portugal, and Finland, Northwest Russia at less than 1%. Those were completely wiped from my genetic slate, and now I'm coming in 2% Norwegian. So again, I kind of add that with. When I think of Scandinavia, I think of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So if you combine the Sweden and the Norway, it comes in at 14%, then 2%, so 16% with those two. And that's kind of in line with the 20% Scandinavian that the first test showed.
And my very last one, guys, is, now this is interesting because they separated this one from Eastern Europe and Russia, because I'm showing 2% Baltic states, which is also redirected from Europe East from our first test.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the Baltic states are comprised of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. So that's way northeast Europe. So I went from 10 initial origins now down to 8, and I think you went from 9 to 6. I lost 2, and you lost 3. So the ones that I lost, guys, were...
Yeah, you're right. 9
so
to 6.
Initially 15% Italian and Greek. Well, that's all been wiped. So that one's gone for me. Iberian Peninsula, that one's all gone for me because I came in at 5. West Asia Caucasus, so how many percentage points is that thus far? So Finland, Northwest Russia, and European Jewish. So I lost more than a quarter percentage-wise of my initial results. And, well, I said we were going to say, is there any being puzzled or surprised or maybe perhaps being a little bit bummed out? I will admit I'm a slight bummed if these new results are true, that I lost all of my Southern and Southwest
me too.
European.
I'm a little disappointed.
Well, yeah, because it's like I had a little bit of Mediterranean flavoring going on, and now it's just the English and the Irish guy primarily. But this is interesting guys. And it was funny because I have friends who had taken different tests. I mean, some people have taken 23andMe. That's just to name one. There's a friend of mine who asked me, did you guys have to submit another subscription to get these new results.
And we did not.
And we just like logged in one day.
Yeah, and they said you have new results waiting. So that's kind of cool that they can keep you updated through your original sample, that you don't have to retest. But it also, on the other side of it, it's kind of like, well, like...
I thought
I thought this, and now
I told everybody.
yeah, and I shared my results, and now there's completely new results with me. It was over 50 percentage points that had changed. So it's a little, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. I'm thinking the second set of results though are more accurate with what I grew up thinking.
I would think mine are too, because Mom talked about France and Northwest Italy, and it could have just been we might not really have any Italian blood, which might not mean that we have any Iberian blood. So, and
it's how they place the regions too.
Yeah,
it's kind of it transects sometimes more than one country. The Germanic region is actually spread out through several countries. So.
I know, and one of these days I spoke a couple years ago, guys, that hopefully I will be able to do a volume 3 to this chapter on my channel, and we're doing so. We're soon going to hear from my youngest sister, and we got to get Nana to do hers, because we don't even know what her updated results are.
We don't.
Maybe she kept her Southern European.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. So we'll have to get her to log on to her account and see what's going on with her results. So.
But either way, thanks for hanging again, guys. We just thought we would give you a little update.
Thanks.
I appreciate you. And if you haven't done this yet, happy hunting.